Chuck, welcome aboard the Transatlantic. Was a day and what a legend for me.
Oh.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
I love the whole nautical theme too. It's just great. It's awesome.
Thank you so much. From you, coming from you, it means a lot to me. I mean, we know that everybody's an ocean, but like Chuck's ocean must be beautiful. And I'm so excited today to cross it through the 7 questions and like uncover a side of you that maybe don't know, but who knows, man. So I would say, let's get through it with the first question. Good. There is a story that once you told me that really stuck with me. You are sailing at night on your dead boat and it's pitch dark. As you stand on the front of the boat, you can only see your toes at the edge of darkness. If you move your toes a little bit, you can rip through darkness and start designing your own world. Now, I'm not sure if I romanticized this. I might have. But I do remember the question that I asked you, and it was, how the heck did you come up with Hello Tomorrow? And I'm talking about the 90-second spots directed by Spike Jonze that you conceived for Adidas, and that to this day, it remains for me and for many people out there, one of the best pieces of work I have seen. Now, the lesson I learned that day is that you often fish in your childhood memories. Does it happen often to you? What is the story behind that great piece of work?
Well, thank you. Well, I like your story better than mine. I really do. I think it was tied a little bit to kind of trying to figure out how the execution would work. To be fair, I think that the memory of being up on the bow of a boat, moving forward with your feet, and it felt like it was darkness in front of you, and so wherever you step, if it became light, what would it be? It was definitely something that I was looking to those memories for in terms of how to execute. But to be really fair, where the idea came from was a discussion that I was having at the time, I think with Mike Allen, because I was trying to figure out what does this shoe do? And if you remember correctly, it was an intelligent shoe. It had a variable little engine in it that moved the silicone around a little bit and gave you different sort of degrees of cushioning as you took your step. And I think the question and I said this to Mike, are you going to tell me that every step I take is actually different because of the way the machine works? And he goes, yeah. And I went, oh, that's cool. And I said, when I went back to my desk, I started writing this story about walking into a space of darkness, and every step would be a new surface or a new experience. And obviously, you kind of write these things out, but then once you start talking to the directors, it starts having a life of its own. And Spike certainly brought a lot to the table because he made it a lot more playful and a lot more irreverent than we originally intended, but I think it made it even more special.
What a great explanation, man. And I'm sorry if I romanticize, but it happened to me very often that full disclosure, you were my boss. And was proudly I was part of your agency. And so I remember our conversation very vividly. Yeah. And, everything I could get from you, it was like treasure for me. So thank you so much for this explanation.
Yeah.
Now, second question. In the year of 2000, you were the co-captain of one of the most beautiful ships ever sailed. Nike, Jordan, and golf at White and Kennedy. You work on Tiger Woods, and your work on Tiger Woods became viral before the word viral became viral. That's the meta shit. Now, during that time, you were very effective. You not just created some of the best work in the industry, but you actually helped Nike regain the business. Now, if you were to come up
with... White and Kennedy, you mean? White and Kennedy, yeah.
Yeah. If you were to come up with a name for that particular chapter of your career, what would the name be and why?
You know, it was a incredibly tumultuous time in my life because um, it's, you know, it was a dream to go up and work on Nike. And the day I started, they told me they had lost half the business, and everybody was like, kind of a little scared, to be honest. And I didn't know how long that job would last due to that issue. So and everything, you know, it would have. I don't know what it would have to be. I think I would have to name the chapter, you know, the test. It was really the test, because, you know, it was where, you know, probably for the first time, you know, I didn't have an account that was in a stable position. It was incredibly unstable, and you know, up until then, you know, I'd been working in agencies that had fairly stable relationships with their accounts, and so it allowed you to do some really great work. And then all of a sudden, you get to the most famous account you could ever work on, and you know, it's destabilized, and so it made everything very, very real and very, very serious. And I remember when you know, I'd been there for about 6 or 7 months before I became the Hal Curtis and I became the sole creative directors. We had shared creative direction with a bunch of other people, Jamie Barrett being one of them. Jerry Cronin was a part of that group. There's a bunch of really great legacy White and Kennedy creative directors on Nike at the time when I first started. There's like 5 creative directors on Nike. It's like, it was stupid. But when we finally got to the point where it was just Hal and Mines, we did something that I think was one of the smartest things we could have done. Nike had felt like White and Kennedy had become very arrogant, and they were the sole ones responsible for the success of Nike. And you know, I think you know, they had, I think they had good reason to feel that way in terms of all the work they did, but they also should have given a shitload of credit to a great client, right? And they weren't doing that very well. And so when we started there were some new people out at Nike. A guy named Chris Zimmerman, who had actually come through Saatchi, was one of my main contacts there. He was new under another guy, Tom Wood, who's a long timer there. And we sat down with him and just said, listen, we're the new creative directors on Nike, and how about we do this? We'll come out by ourselves with the work, and we'll talk to you about the work. Give us permission to fight for what we think is right. We're going to give you permission to fight for what you think is wrong. Let's have good, healthy arguments, but let's keep it in the room. And then when we come out, we're together. You know, we'll be on the same team. And we did that for about 6 months, and the work was, you know, always great. But what started happening is we really started trusting each other. The client and I, you know, we started trusting our opinions and really learning, you know, what kind of tone we wanted to capture on certain campaigns and stuff like that. And then funny enough, the client started to desperately want to figure out, like, who is the creative team on that, you know, on that script, or who is the creative team on that script. And we slowly then started introducing the creative teams again back to the client, because they wanted to, you know, kind of feel the gang and stuff like that. And we really reshaped the relationship, you know, about it, and centered it on the good work is going to come from the relationship, as opposed to just our desperate desire to do good work, because White and Kennedy has that the work comes first kind of mantra, right? And, you know, to me, and I was telling it to Dan, you know, halfway through this journey with on this account, was the work can't come first. The relationship has to come first, and then the work's going to come out of that relationship. And we did a fantastic job. You know, at the end of 2 years, we had won not only all the business back, but we had gone to Cannes that year and won Client of the Year, and then actually won the year after that. So
Yeah.
2 years in a row, Nike won Client of the Year.
But, you know, what resonates with me about these stories, like, two things, like, I do agree with you, the relationship comes first, and then, like, the work comes out of the relationship that you have, because you had to build, like, some kind of, like, trust foundation to sell the work. Like, creative freedom comes out of, like, you know, trust. And then the second part, and I do remember we had a conversation about that, your tumultuous, like, life when you were in Portland. And but I do believe, like, for me, your Portland was like my Hamburg when I was in Germany. it was a very tumultuous part of my life, and like, you know, nothing was very like stable. But at the same time, those are the times that are more productive somehow in
It's
a
weird, isn't
creative
it? Yeah.
life, because
Our
you
lives are falling apart, so we go to work.
exactly.
Our salvation is coming up with ideas and going on
Exactly.
sets and making pretend.
Exactly, man. Great. Third question. Scattering ashes at sea is a very common tribute to loved ones. Talking about ashes, seas, and things that will stay in our hearts, from the ashes of TBWA San Francisco, an agency that dominated the advertising industry under your leadership, the independent agency Cutwater rose in 2007. It was a true rebirth and a defining moment in your career. Now, I heard this, and I'm actually a believer about this statement. There is people that say there is Chuck before Cutwater and there is Chuck after Cutwater. Would you agree on this? And if you do, what is the difference between the two versions of Chuck?
You know, I would have to agree with it because there's got to be a Chuck after this damn thing, right? I have no choice. You know, you know, right now what's great about Cutwater, it's a lovely stepping stone, you know, kind of on a journey I've been on for you know all my life really, but for my professional life, you know, certainly for the better part of what, you know, 15 years, not only starting Cutwater within, you know, TBWA, but then taking it independent in 2007 and still having that today has been, you know, quite the journey. But, you know, it's like, the funny thing is that, you know, pandemic and all the times you have now to kind of really think about what you really want out of the time you have. I think that where Chuck goes after this is probably the same thing, just a different, you know, a different mode of it. I feel like I'm always going to want to be close to ideas. I'm not going to be one of those guys that wants to go start an in-house agency for a client. You know, I don't think I'm going to be good at that. But I do think that, you know, some of the things that I would like to explore are ways of which creative talent can work within the entertainment industry at a level that they were familiar with, you know, within the ad industry, i.e. actually doing some really good stuff and getting recognized for it and things like that. Because I think that, you know, we have an existence that's kind of works off of this idea that we have to sell something to somebody who's going to pay for it. And it has to align with all of their brand pillars and all their structures and all that kind of, there's a rationale to it. When I think most of us as artists find ideas and write them down and want them produced because they're stories that are close to our heart. And I think there's more stories than we get to do in advertising. There's just more stories that certainly that I have in my head or in a pad of paper somewhere that have nothing to do with a good ad, but they're a damn good story and I'd like to tell it. So my hopes is I've always been a storyteller and I've had the liberty really to tell stories through clients, but my hopes is, you know, down the road, I'll be able to do it without necessarily worrying about having it financed by a client. You know, I would love if they paid for it, but at the end of the day, I think I'd rather just tell the story and do it the way I wanted.
Right. You know, it's funny because like I remember the day you hired me, I had a few people reaching out to me and that's where the statement come from. They told me that, so are you going to get like, which version of Chuck you going to get? I was like, what do you mean? And say, well, there is like, you know, you like a software, you know, like there is like the original version, then there is like the 2.0. And I guess like for many there in the industry, like I got the 2.0, but to me to this day, it's still like, you know, an invaluable lesson. What I learned from you is like, and I think I know, like, you know, your spirit hasn't really changed. And what I admire of you is like the fact that you're so close to the ideas and you don't want to like leave your craft. And why would you? Like, you know, at the end of the day, that's the best piece of motivation we have. You know what I mean? All we have is our craft. And I think that's,
I mean, people have asked me, like, you know, would you leave and go do something else? It's come up, you know, in the last 6 months because of what's going on right now, right? You know, I've been asked by friends and colleagues and even family, like, you know, my stepbrother was asking me if I'd moved to Kentucky and hang out and work on a farm. You know what I mean? It was like I'm getting asked all kinds of crazy questions. So I'm like, all right, well, do I really want to do that? So, you know, you get asked all these questions, and I, you know, I think that what I'll always want to do is be around the people that are part of the making of the idea. You know, you know, it's always, I think it's the locker room. I don't think you miss, if you play sports, I don't think you miss the field, but I sure do miss the locker room.
Oh, definitely. That's
You know?
a great metaphor. That's a
You
great
know?
metaphor, actually.
And so to
Yeah.
me, I never want to leave the locker room. I think that I kind of want to make a career out of the locker room.
Right.
And just stay in the locker room and just be there for as long as I possibly can, so that I have that, you know, and I, you know, there's been a lot of field in my career, but I do think the locker room has been always where I had my most, you know, my most significant connections.
This is awesome, man. I love the locker room. It's like truly resonate. I mean, European guy with soccer and everything. Thank you, man. Okay, this is all going very biased, but like, you know, by now we know that I was like part of your crew. The biggest lesson you told me is like, and I remember this. You told me once, like, you know, in this business, you don't survive if you don't write your shit down. That's one of my dearest memories. And it goes like this. I walk in at Cutwater early in the morning, and this used to piss me off really bad. And you were already there, right? You were already out working me at, like, you know, whatever hours I would walk in, you were there before me. So there are a lot of okay captains in this industry, but only a few of them are willing to roll up the sleeves and do something about their business. So you are one of them. Now, my question, which I've asked you in the past, but I want the audience to hear, is where the fuck do you find the drive after so many years? Your resilience is unmatched. Where do you find your drive?
You know, it was I would say the first version of me was a creative that was kind of really challenged to try to kind of earn their position in the you know, in the history books, so to speak. And as I kind of cemented that part of my career, I think the next one was, I can't ask anybody to do something I wouldn't be willing to do myself if I'm going to have my own company. And I always found it hard to ask even a junior, hey, you got to stay here later tonight or work over the weekend and get this thing right if I didn't show up and do the work too. Like, you know, I felt like that would have been it'd be hard to ask somebody to really work hard if they didn't look over there and see you working hard. So, you know, to me, it was always like a responsibility that I had, not just to the agency, but really to the people, you know, to share with them that, you know, you're not doing this alone. We're all in this, and we're all going to be working hard. And the times that I ask you to work hard, I'll be working hard too. So I'm asking you to do something that I'm doing myself. You know, it would be, I always thought that was the way a leader should behave, you know, by example. And I still do that to this day, I think, for the most part, because I think I have a hard time just telling people what to do. Sometimes I think the best thing to do is show them how you do it, and then they learn it by osmosis.
Yeah, I remember you used to tell me, like, lead by example. Lead by example. That's the only way you can do it. And like, show it to them. If they don't know how to do it, like, show it to them. And I'd say, man, like, yeah, your resilience, like, it's something else. Like, you know, I remember, like, I have a memory of you, like, you know, leaning on your desk and writing on paper, like, you know, handwriting, like, you know, someone can write on the computer, but there is a craft to it. There is a commitment. I think, like, when you handwrite something, you commit to every single word you write.
Oh yeah.
And I remember you did this, like, for every single thing. It doesn't matter if it was, like, you know, a large piece of business or it was the naming of a new company. It didn't really matter, like, you know, so thank you so much.
Yeah, I've got a file of all those little notebooks. Goes all the way back to Team One, to be fair. I don't know where they are, and they're somewhere in boxes somewhere, but I've got them all. And I've always thought, what a great project to go back through the pages and find where the lines were written, you know, where
Yeah, that would be
I
awesome.
put a little tab on and say, yeah, that's where I put down that headline, or that's where that theme line came from. But then I think about how long that would take, and I go, I'm not going to do that.
Good. Okay, for a long time, I had this phrase in my head: the ocean has no memory. And I tried to remember where I heard these words. And then suddenly I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna Google it, because I can't have these words like swirling in my head. So when I Googled, like clearly, like the first result was this line is recited by Tim Robbins in the movie like The Shawshank Redemption. That's when they are talking, him and Morgan Freeman, and he's telling that like it will be nice at one point when you feel like in prison to escape in the middle of the ocean in a island, in a place that has no memory. Mm-hmm. Now, feeling trapped and in prison is a very common feeling that creatives that work in this business that is unforgiving sometimes had to endure. What is your escape? A place with no memory? Where do you go when you feel so pressured?
Well, I'm just, lucky because, I had a young child about 9 years ago, and I think that, they just don't put up with shit. You go there and you got to be present. You got to be there. So it just takes you away from all that. In fact, kids have always done that for me. They're kind of the way the best way to see the world. And so for me, I just get with the kids. And once I'm with the kids, I become one again. Like, dude, I was out at a skate park, a couple of weeks ago. And so, doing stuff with the kids. In fact, after this, I'm supposed to go out and play some football in the street, because the rain stopped for a little while. Yeah. So, get with the kids, hang out with them, listen to them. My kids get into the car and it's their radio station. They've preset the dials. They're the ones that pick the music and all that kind of stuff. And so I just listen and watch and learn and just shut up and just try to hear as much as I possibly can. And then it just kind of brings me back to not only why I'm doing it, but in many ways how and the enthusiasm that a young person comes to you with a new song that they've just found and they fell in love with, and they're just so filled with it. I look at that energy and go, gosh, we should all have that passion about something so simple as hearing a song, right? It's like, you remember when you first fell in love, you knew it would never happen again that same way, right? It was like the most intense thing in the world. And there you were at 18, and of course you did it 5 more times in your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
That original, those original feelings are so strong that, I think it's just I've just been just so fortunate to be around a lot of people going through those stages of their lives in my family, and just being with them has always been the place I could retreat to. It's always that and the ocean to no less, to get out on a board and float and just do that too. That gets you out too.
And a version of you with the kids is the 3.0, which I actually witnessed, because your kid, your little one, and like my little one, they were like for 1 year, I think they went to the same class, same school. So I've seen you like, so sweet and like totally right. It's like, it's a beautiful place to go and retreat when like, everything else, like, it's pressuring you, and like you can literally forget everything, and they force you to forget everything because they demand attention.
Yeah.
Good. You mentioned Team One, and I have a question for you, going back to your earliest year. You've been a captain for a while, but a few decades ago, you were like a seaman recruit. So you were a young copywriter at Team One. And I went through your LinkedIn profile and like I scrolled down, and underneath like Team One copywriter, there's a beautiful line that say, I pitch my brain out. And that is beautiful to me, because I always say to my students or the young creative in my team, every day is a pitch day. A pitch doesn't like truly break you, it only makes you. So now I would like to know from you one good thing about pitching new business and one bad thing about pitching your business? Something that you hate and something that you love.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I hate about it is I hate giving people free ideas. I'll tell you, that's what I hate. I've never really liked the fact that we do all this work and we put it out there, and it's probably some of the best work that we could come up with in that category, right? I don't know about you, but I think I've lost a lot of pitches because I kind of over rev the engine. I come in with work that the client's looking at going like, there's no hell, there's no way in hell I'm going to be able to do work like this. These guys are way too, crazy, so to speak. And so, which is, I guess, to be expected, but to me, what's great, and to your point about, pitching every day, like, that's it. That's truly what we're doing, right? Every week or every meeting we go in, that presentation is another pitch. Now, it's not a pitch to win a business, but it's definitely a pitch to keep their hearts. It's a pitch to keep them interested. It's a pitch to make them laugh a little bit, to take the brand, maybe in a less serious way than they did before, or to put it into a light of which they've never really captured it in. So to me, you're always pitching. You're always out there, and any good comedian that's putting together a stand-up routine knows that you're always pitching. Any good salesperson knows that you're always selling. So, I think that and you find so many times that people get tired, and I think that the way to reduce the fatigue is to make sure that the stamina is there. And so if you kind of get your group together, and the idea is we're always going to pitch, we're always going to pitch, we're always going to pitch, at the very least, when you're in that mode, they don't have to look at you like you're crazy. They go, this is how I ride the bike, huh? And you go, yeah, this is how you ride the bike. That's the speed you gotta move at, right? This is this is, that's the pace you want to work at. And what's great is when you get in that pace, and it goes all the way back to like that time at White and Kennedy. We're in such a pace. We were riding the bike, and everybody was riding so fast that it was like one idea after another idea after another idea after another idea. And it was almost like every day it came in saying, what the hell is going to happen today? Because ideas were popping. And I feel like, I think creativity, you can get into a zone, right? And once you're in that zone, man, you better stay as long as you can, because it's a rare place to be. And find a way to always get back to that place.
Absolutely.
And I think having that pitch mentality brings you there, right?
Right.
You're thinking about things that are there to grab somebody's attention, to make them feel like you're different than the rest of the people they're considering. And isn't that what it's all about?
Yeah, man. It's like, you talk about the zone, and like it brings to me, up here, as you remember, like I ride motorcycles. And one of the things about a motorcycle is like, you start your motorcycle in the morning, it's cold, you let it run a little bit, and then you get on the freeway, and eventually you're going to hit the sweet spots where, like, the piston, they're going to work together in sync.
Yeah.
At the perfect RPM. And that's like an enjoyment, because like you get on the freeway and the piston are working together in sync, and you truly are experiencing what it's like to ride a motorcycle. And I think that what you were saying is like to be in the zone, and when you start popping ideas, you're gonna get at one point in the very sweet spots that is amazing, where you truly can feel the energy, and it doesn't last for long, because as the motorcycle at one point has to stop, there is traffic, or there is a red light,
exactly,
some dickhead that like cuts the, but that's a sweet spot that everybody wants to be in. So yeah. Great, man.
And it's like, the way, I know, you've worked in running, I've worked in running, and that everybody talks about that runner's high, and it's right. True. There's that you're running along, and your heart rate comes down, your breathing settles down, and you're actually running, but you're actually breathing normal, and your heart rate's down. You know what I mean? It's like your body's used to it. And I think that, I think creativity, works in the same kind of way. If you get to that pace and you have that, that conditioning, you get out there, and once you get there, you can stay there. And I think that that's that's why I go into work in the mornings, and I try to find that little spot where I can get my heart rate down, my breathing's, but I'm running, I'm riding. So I'm coming up with ideas. I get an hour of time every day where I don't have to answer a phone call, and it's the morning, so I spend it hopefully wisely.
Because the trick is like to kind of like master the extension of the sweet zone. In fact, you talked about running, which is a great metaphor. I think I was always fascinated by ultramarathon.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, people that run 50 miles or 70 miles, like, you know, and I think what they do really better than anybody else, they get into the zone and they stay in the zone.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very, very difficult to get into, like, you know, that space and stretch it forever.
Exactly.
If you do that in any kind of...
But look how addicting that must be. They get in there and then they stretch it for another 50 miles.
Exactly.
I mean, it's got to be like, you know, it's got to be intoxicating if you really think about it.
It is.
To be in that space where your body and your mind and everything's working in that kind of way, it is, you know, it must be just a feeling, a high above all highs. You know, it's got to be. It's so natural. You know, it's a really and I feel that same way when, you know, you're working on a problem and you start finding solutions, and you not only find the solution, you can look at that solution then from another angle, and you start, you know, then you start working your script, and you're getting into, you know, places where you're saying, how do I start this script? You know, how do I do the same idea but start the script differently? You know, and it's really cool. It's like your mind is working faster than it normally does, and your consciousness is just trying to keep up.
Definitely working faster than your fingers. Right. Hey, I see the shore. This last question is the same question that we ask to all our guests. If there was a wind that blows your sail, what would the name be?
Oh gosh, let's see. You know, I think it's been that resilience. You know, the thing that when I first paired up with Lee Clow and I was working with them on Adidas and Levi's out of Chiat, we were pretty much running both global and North American business together, and then he let me kind of do a lot, you know, by myself. But I had to. We were partners, and we flew on airplanes all the time. And I thought he said something to me that I've never forgotten, because everybody looks at him and he says, "Oh, you're an icon, you're a legend, you're a genius." And he leans over to me at one point in time. We're sitting there on a plane and we both have a glass of wine, and he goes, "You know, a lot of people refer to me as a genius, but I like to think of myself as just being more resilient." Mm. And because I asked him about, you know, how he kept it going the whole time, and he said, "Listen, I've been kicked off every account that I had at the agency. You know, they kicked me off of Nissan at one point. You know, Apple told me to go to hell at one point. You know, I've been pushed around by all these major brands, and to be honest, you know, I always came back. I never, you know, I always came back into the office the next day. I didn't cry. I didn't, you know, get all pissed off about it and kick the, you know, the trash can. I came back the next day and I wrote more ads. And I always looked at that and went, holy fucking shit, man. That's so cool, because, you know, we've all had that time where an account kind of shut us down, or a creative director shut us down, or a client shut us down. And it really, really hurts. You know, it's really one of those things where you kind of go, shit, do I really want to do this anymore? And I always look at Cloud and I said, you just get in your yellow truck and drive up to the agency the next day, come on in and say, all right, what do we got today? You know, it's like short memories, man. Just have a short memory, come in the next day, stay positive. You know, you're going to crack it this day. I still come to work, you know, I still, you know, even through Zoom, I still wake up every morning hoping that today's the day that assignment comes through, or that idea comes to you, that it's the one that's going to, you know, be the next one you really want to go do. And that's why I still love this business.
Yeah, like, you know, resilience is a beautiful word. I'm in love with those words that have this little game, personal game, like find a word in English. And if we translate the same way in Italian, it means like if it doesn't really change, resilience, resilienza in Italian, that means there is a son of a bitch of a word. It's really tough. It doesn't allow anybody to touch.
Nobody could have changed it in a language, man.
You know what I mean? Like, you don't play with me. Anyway, look, man, it was an honor, a pleasure, and what can I say? Thank you so much for giving your time and your presence on Transatlantic. I appreciate every single of it, man.
Absolutely. All right. I really enjoyed it, and I just love what you're doing. So hello to everybody out there who's watching, and you know, we hope to see you again one day.
Bye, man. Bye-bye.